So now we come to the fourth stream. And again, we only separate these for the purpose of education. They really all flow together. The fourth stream is compassion. We've touched on it before, but I think it really deserves its own stream because it's such a powerful energy source. And it's unique. It's got a flavor and a feeling to it that it's up to you to explore on your own. And we will perpetually fall back into aggression as a driver because we have instincts and we have DNA and we have our own personal histories, and it's okay. Now, compassion-based high performance is not one that allows anything and everything to happen. Compassion can drive us to make some very difficult decisions. In fact, the samurais would often say that they would shed a tear as they drove their sword through the heart of an enemy. It had to happen for whatever reason, but it was heartbreaking that it did. See, compassion is really, it's an attitude. It's a way of approaching what needs to happen that will have a profound impact on how things happen, and may even have a profound impact on what actually happens. But it's going to be up to us to better gauge what our real driver is. In this moment, am I being driven by a desire to serve? Am I aware of how deeply connected we really are? That this human being before me, these teammates beside me, the opposition on the other side of the court are all a part of me, that we're deeply, deeply connected. And how I relate to them is really just an extension of how I relate to myself. So when we go to look at our experience of compassion, very often we can just watch how we relate to others, and it will be a more meaningful confession of how you really relate to yourself than what you may tell yourself. I know a lot of people who say they love themselves, but they fill their bodies with poison. They don't care for themselves physically at all. They have no spiritual practice, no meditation practice. And they're often very easily upset, and they have a lot of caustic and very negative things to say about humanity. And that really is a confession that the energy you see people releasing onto their own experience and onto the experiences of others is an energy that they carry. So the aggression that people release onto others isn't something that's in a bucket beside them, it's coming from inside them. There's actually a quote in my house that says, "A man sees in the world what he holds in his heart." So watch how you relate to others as a real good demonstration of how you relate to yourselves. Because when you love yourself, you find it really difficult to be hurtful to others because you know how deeply connected you are. So compassion, best defined by a desire to suffer with another person, to share their burden, is a physical experience. I want you to explore where you feel it in your body. I invite you to enter into a practice of purposely cultivating it. Perhaps doing a meditation on compassion by getting yourself into a meditative posture, finding your breath, sort of checking in with your body, something that I invite you to do when you meditate. Just how do you feel? What's going on today? What are the energies in your body? There's nothing that we have to be forceful about. We don't have to get into a meditative state. It's just, we're just sitting, just being, not doing anything, just being. But once you feel like you've been integrated, you basically invite someone into your life that immediately brings up what you believe to be is this energy of compassion, and just sort of sit with it. You can actually love the person even though they're not with you. Love is an act, right? It's a verb, but sometimes it's visible and sometimes it's not. You can actually love someone when you choose to. That's how you stay in love. Rather than wait for the world to decide how you feel, rather than wait for other people to determine your emotions, you begin to cultivate emotional energy. You start your day by cultivating compassion, love, and gratitude. Watch what that does for your day. But in order to cultivate those things, you have to have the capacity to be single-minded. And if you don't have the capacity to be single-minded, you can at least forgive yourself for your failure to be single-minded. See, it's always okay to start. I mentioned this to you earlier. Compassion is always available to us. So if I sit in an effort to cultivate compassion and I fail, and I feel myself fill with aggression and resentment, in that moment, as I bear witness to my humanity, I'm in the gap. Just not in the gap in a boat or in the bank. I'm in the gap in my seat. And I can react to that experience with loving kindness and realize I'm doing my best. And if in that moment you can find a way to bear witness to your own failing and meet it with loving kindness, you are actually learning what forgiveness is. We can't forgive others until we learn to forgive ourselves. You know your own sins better than you know anyone's. Come face to face with them and meet them with loving kindness. Of course, your ego is going to suggest if you're too soft on yourself, it will just give you permission to continue. The reality is, if you really experience the loss and the sadness, you'll see the confusion. If you respond with shame and guilt, those things perpetuate the behavior. If you can just let it break your heart, that's the ultimate goal. Compassion is, in fact, the experience of being brokenhearted. In the Shambhala lineage of Buddhism, it's said that all warriors have broken hearts. That once you wake up to the reality of what it really means to be human, you realize that it's difficult for everyone. There's nobody out there who's having an easier time in this moment relating to their own experience than you. They may have lots of external trimmings that are distractions from that inner experience, but if they ever choose to bring their awareness to their heart, they're going to meet with the same energy that you and I have access to today. Now, some people, when they bring their attention to their heart, they may have some real suffering, some real trauma that makes their experience more painful, but they still have the same capacity that we do to meet that experience with loving kindness. So as you invite these people or this person into your meditation and you begin to feel this energy, just explore it. Don't squeeze it. Just let it rest in your body for as long as it's willing to stay. If it leaves, it leaves. Come back to the breath. Try again. If you have some success, stick with it. If you don't, we'll come back to it tomorrow. But in doing that, you're engaged in an act of compassion because you're letting go. Expectation is filled with aggression. Ask yourself, everyone wants to know, do I have a right to have expectations? You have the right to hit yourself in the head with a hammer. But what are your expectations going to do? What is that energy you're hoping to use? You're hoping to force other people to behave the way you want them to so that it satisfies you, even if it's not their inclination? What is an expectation? So again, compassion as a driver does not disallow me from sitting with an employee and saying, listen, we met last week and we discussed about your output. You had agreed to make some changes and they haven't been made. I offered myself to help in that process. It doesn't seem to be working. And the larger business right now simply can't afford to have output at this level, so we're going to have to ask you to go. You can make some really powerful and very difficult decisions with compassion as a driver. It doesn't mean that we accept or allow all types of behavior. It does mean that we accept what is happening now as already having a life of its own, but we do not have to allow it to continue. There's a big difference. So I really hope that you take the opportunity to explore this energy of compassion so that you can sort of have a wellspring of it, so that when you catch yourself, just like when we catch ourselves drifting from the breath in meditation, during the day you're going to catch yourself not having been home. You're going to feel yourself tight or hurried, sort of wasting your life trying to get to some imaginary point in the future that's going to be better, and you're going to bear witness to that, and you're immediately going to just sort of smile at yourself and realize that it was just a lack of skillfulness on my part. It was nothing I intended. It was the best I could do. And in that moment, if you can meet yourself with compassion, your capacity will grow dramatically. That's a simple everyday moment. Now do the same thing in your training. Do the same thing in your studying. In whatever art you perform, whatever work you do, meet yourself in those moments of realization with this sort of act of loving kindness, and it will soften you, but it will free up so much energy that you are unknowingly using to suppress and deny your own suffering. So when we choose to be high-performing people, see, what we're actually doing is we're inviting suffering. That's the definition of high performance. What's the thing that stops most people from doing it? It hurts. It's scary. There's a lot to lose. You're asking for the experience of suffering and choosing to become a high-performing human. What we're trying to do is to meet that suffering with compassion. And where can you start? Where do you start anything? Any teacher that teaches you and doesn't say we start right here and right now is teaching concept. I don't want to teach concept. Start now. Right now. And now. And now. It doesn't end. Just start now. Bring your attention to the body. Find the breath. Smile. I keep saying smile because the act of physically smiling actually affects our central nervous system in a very profound way, even if you don't want to. Smile. Be kind to yourself. And in doing that, you will free up energy to go places you never thought you had the capacity to go. You'll recognize fear and negative thinking as clouds, and you'll be more capable of connecting and serving others, which will make you a very powerful human being. The truest definition of high performance is the capacity to influence our own experience and the experience of others in ways that no one else could. And I wish you all of the luck in the world on your path, and I pray that compassion becomes a driver for you, and that together we can change this world in ways that no one else could. Thank you.